Welcome to the Farmizen show, where we uncover the delicious interplay between food, farming, and wellness, shaping a brighter, healthier tomorrow. Better for farmers, better for the planet, better for you. Let's dig in. Are you tired of confusing health trends and endless new diets claiming miraculous results? Today, we strip back the complexities of nutrition to something more pure, more sustainable, and possibly more beneficial than any superfood pill or powder could offer. Join us as we explore the transformative power of a whole food plant-based diet with our expert guest, a renowned holistic nutritionist who's here to debunk myths, share secrets, and guide us back to the basics of eating well for our bodies and for the planet. Stay tuned as we dig into the roots of true wellness on today's episode. Welcome, Dr. Gauri Rokkam.
Thank you so much, Shamik.
How are you doing today? All good?
Yes, Oliver, thank you so much.
Cool. So excited to have you here. Let me get started asking you some controversial questions. So see, this whole diet, nutrition, etc. It's good that a lot of people are now a lot more interested about this. But we see a lot of contradictory information out there as well, a lot of different myths and things like that. So in your practice, as you have worked with thousands of people, what are the most common 2 or 3 wrong informations that you think are there in the market right now, which people are like, there's a lot of confusion around that and there's some wrong information out there. What do you think?
Okay. There are many for that matter, as you said. It is basically because of the different food philosophies, probably. You know what?
Okay.
Modern medical nutrition talks could be completely controversial or contradicting to the Indian traditional food philosophies. If you take nature cure or yogi philosophy of food, I think that is where contradictions come in. Like Ayurveda. So they all have their own ways of dealing with things. And I think none of them are wrong, or
Okay.
they can be, this is right, that is wrong. It is all
Okay.
about what you follow. So instead of mixing up things, the consumer has to decide which is the way they want to go ahead, which is the way they trust, or what is it suits their personality, their practicality, and their understanding, and choose one type so that they don't get into these confusions and contradictions. And they choose one thing, yeah, that will probably help settle a lot of things, I will feel.
Got it. So I know that you talk a lot about holistic and whole food plant-based diets, right? So let's break that down a little bit. What do you mean by holistic?
Right. See, when we talk about nutrition, modern medical nutrition talks about breaking down the human system into its organ systems, and again, breaking down food into its components. Why?
Okay.
To understand both deeply and deeply, so that whatever that particular organ system needs can be provided by that particular specific components of the food. But when it comes to holistic nutrition, what the whole philosophy is all about is, see, these are two complex systems, both for that matter, human body and food. So they interact with each other and its own parts and work in synergy to give the desired results. So when we
Okay.
work with complex systems, we should never use these mechanistic reductionist theories, and we'll soon get it away. So it is
Right.
all very important to look at bringing in balance and harmony. The whole philosophy of holistic nutrition talks about, health as an expression of kind of complex interplay between the physical and the chemical, the mental and the emotional, and the psychological and the environmental aspects of a life or being itself. It's too complex. You cannot isolate things and play around and expect to work.
Got it. Okay. And what do you mean by whole food plant-based?
Okay. See, plants give us food. That is, every part of the plant, of course, different plants, different parts of the plants can be used as food. So keeping it as whole as possible means keeping it as close as possible the way the plant produced. For example, let's take rice. when you look at what is available on the plant, is the paddy, which we
Mhm.
cannot consume. It has to be hulled, and only then we can consume. So the first product coming from paddy is after hulling, which is unpolished rice. So the
Mhm.
least processed from the plant is the unpolished rice.
Mhm.
Similarly, every product, if it is as close to the way the plant produced, is most beneficial because it has everything intact. All the nutrients, especially the micronutrients and the fiber, which is
Mhm.
most important if you ask me. That is the magical nutrient, which is what is missing in today's diets and foods. So
Mhm.
everything is intact. The more and more you process, the more and more is lost. So when we say whole plant foods, it is just keeping it as close as possible without refining, without processing.
Got it. So you mentioned fiber as probably maybe one of the most important components of our food, right? But there's this other thing that we are seeing a lot of conversation around right now, which is protein. Recently, for example, I think ICMR came up with a report where they said, hey, you should not be, we are unnecessarily recommending so many protein supplements, etc. Then there was a whole controversy around where somebody went ahead and analyzed all of these whey protein powders, etc., and said that many of them are kind of spurious. They are not really, either they have harmful things along with whey protein and things like that. So wanted to know what your take is on the protein part of it. I think fiber, everybody agrees, is extremely important, but protein is something where we see at least two different schools of thought, right? There's one school of thought which says, at least 0.8 gram to 1.2 grams of protein per kg body weight based on how active and are you like going to the gym and things like that. And then there's another, I've also read a bunch of articles which says there's an article which is called the protein myth, which says no, you actually don't need so much of protein. So where do you stand, and what does your school of thought say about protein?
Yeah, this is very important question which all of us as a common man needs to understand because protein has been promoted crazily. I don't know, maybe that's what sells, whether it is animal products, eggs, supplements, milk products, everything is around market. It is all about making money. I and you can't sell carrots and make money, right? It is promotion of protein is all about the market, is what is the
Okay.
underlying factor, is what I will say. But
Okay.
again, you've asked me so many questions. Let me just touch upon a few things. Why
Sure.
do we need protein? That's a basic question. Growth, development, and repair. These are the three, main major functions of protein. Growth and development is till a point where we reach adulthood. After that, growth and development is all over, right? For me and for you, for that matter, growth development is over. It is all about repair and restoration on a daily basis. So during growth and development, yes, we need good amount of proteins, not the exceeding amount of proteins which people talk about and recommend. After adulthood, it is all just basic repair and research. So the amount of protein needed is not too much. And every food on earth has protein. There can't be any food without protein. So we will never go low on protein when we are eating a considerably healthy, balanced meal on meal basis every day. If we are eating well and healthy, we'll never go low on protein. And also, we spoke about gymming or excess activity. So there are two aspects here. One is my muscle is breaking down, so do I need to have more? Eat your muscle break. Where is the protein going out? Is the body excreting it out? No. All that protein which broke down is inside my body only. In a place, something called the amino acid pool. So it's always available to the body. But whatever breaks down inside the body is protein in nature. And they're broken down to its contents, which is amino acid, and is fed inside the body. And when body tries to make something else, maybe the body is trying to make a cell, an antibody, or a muscle, or an enzyme, or a hormone, all of that needs protein. So it goes to this pool and picks up the amino acid it needs to make those. So it is not kind of I broke down and I have to supply everything. No, it is all there. But while breaking down and while making, some amount of serving is lost. And that is what needs to be replaced. And definitely a whole plant-based meal, which is, as I said, made at home and healthy, will provide all that protein it requires. And the second
Got
thing
it.
you talked about is because of intense physical activity, do I need more proteins? So it is common sense to say that my intense physical activity is going to increase my appetite and hunger, isn't
Yeah.
it? So I'm
Yes.
going to eat more foods. If I have good amount of protein-rich food, I'm going to get enough of my proteins. So whatever your profession is, whatever your physical activity levels are, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
You have put this into the body, and body creates that kind of hunger because it has used that many calories, and that hunger guides us to eat enough, whether it is calories or proteins or fats. But our business is to ensure our food is balanced and healthy.
Got it. Got it. So I think you touched upon an interesting point there, which is that you mentioned that, our body will kind of tell us, right? That, okay, it's hungry. So, I mean, we are very active. So that's why the body tells us that it's hungry. What are these sort of signs that we should look for? I believe that we have kind of, like everything else, we have become, we have stopped being mindful in general about many things, right? And one of the things we have stopped being mindful about is just listening to what our bodies are telling us, right? For example, what I mean by that is, if I take my dogs out for a walk, right? And if they have some sort of a illness, sickness, whatever, nobody has given them a prescription. They go out and know which plants they are going to eat, right? I mean, I find that very amazing that they are able to actually go figure that plant out. And even if I take like a 2-year-old dog, which doesn't have much experience and things like that, it knows that this is something I need to eat and it's going to hopefully solve my problem. They don't eat all plants, right? So why is that happening? That's because their bodies kind of have some level of that intelligence, I believe, and which they are listening to, and they are kind of, they are not watching TV like us all throughout the day. They are not on mobile phones like us all throughout the day. So I think they are more tuned towards, animals are more tuned towards listening to their bodies, right? So what can we as humans do to develop our ability to listen to what our bodies are telling us? What can we do? Because that's the first step, right? If we listen to that, then we can kind of take those, okay, our body is telling go and have more rice, right? So let's go ahead and do that. What can we do to do that?
Absolutely. I think you said it all. So they have an innate intelligence which guides them. And we
Mhm.
also have equally intelligent intelligence guiding us. But as you said, we are running behind so many more things, right? We have no time and we have no clue of how we can pause and understand and listen to the signals coming out from the body. So
Hmm.
that is exactly what we need. We just have to slow down. We just have to be mindful and be completely aware of what's happening. The minute we slow down, give those pauses, rest a bit, and listen, body will give out more than necessary signals. Like, for example, if you touched upon the dog, the minute your pet is sick, it'll stop eating drinking, right? It'll simply
Right.
stop eating, lie down and
Right.
rest. It does only a couple of things. Stop eating, sip on water, rest, and rest completely. Probably you might even get scared where it is going to die and rush into the vet. So it is
Right.
going to, rest like that. And when it feels a little cold, walk slowly towards where it gets sunshine and lies down there till its body gets heated up and again comes back to the shade and rest. That's exactly
Right.
what we need to do whenever we fall sick. And if we keep doing it properly on a daily basis, we don't even fall sick. That is one of the beautiful concepts in nature.
Hmm. 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 How do we train our kids to, or rather untrain our kids, right? Because I assume that when they're born, they have all of this intelligence amongst themselves, and then gradually they get exposed to the world and kind of lose that. But what steps can we take to make our kids develop that listening skill from day zero?
Right. Siva. The first thing is we have to change. We have to be the role
Okay.
models, right? Once we become the role models, like we follow something, our children, we don't have to teach them. They just follow us. Do you remember what your grandmother said? Or at least your great grandmother said. For me, for my generation, it is my grandmother. For you, I don't know if it was your grandmother or great grandmother. Always they said, slow down, sit down and eat, sit down and drink water. Why are you running like this? Slow down. Every time for everything, my grandmother, grandfather, both sides, always their instructions would be, why are you rushing? Slow down, sit down and eat, chew properly. But you know what your mother said? Always, you have heard your mother and father say, quick, hurry, finish, right? This is the difference between these generations. We are always in this rat race. I don't know where we are running. And at the end of even winning that race, we are still the rats. I don't know what we are doing, right? It is very, very important for us to reflect back onto our lives and see what we are running behind and what are we going to achieve out of that at the end of the day. You earn money, you earn your name, fame, everything, and lose all those which are so important in life. You know, probably your health, physical health, mental health, emotional resilience, and the spiritual balance and well-being, and probably relationships, which are all so important. We lose all of that in this running probably for a couple of decades. And we end up in a place where we have lost all these things which are so important in life and made money, gained fame. But you're doing it all of those. So it is very
Right.
important for us. It's top of our life.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Let me then ask you a few. See, I think I don't want to get into details about what whole food based plant based diets are, because I think many people know about it, kind of, right? We might not have implemented it, but there is kind of like a broad based idea. But there are always these objections or questions or doubts that come in people's minds, right? One of the doubts that comes in people's mind is, okay, see, all of this plant based stuff is great. I can understand, it makes a lot of sense. But it's going to require a lot of knowledge and understanding for me to do this. Let me just go ahead and eat chicken, mutton. It's going to be, or let me have milk. It's going to be complete food. I don't have to worry too much about things. Versus when I eat plant based, I have to kind of figure out: am I getting my carbs? Am I getting my proteins? I have to basically be a lot more thoughtful about eating if I eat plant based. What is your reaction to that?
Honestly, it's absolutely nonsense if people has, made this into an issue. No,
Mm-hmm.
actually, plant-based eating or whole food plant-based eating is the simplest, but I don't call it easiest because it is difficult to adopt. So
Okay.
planning them and creating plant-based food or meals are very simple. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, exactly today morning, we have posted a video of how to create a wholesome plant-based meal. So I've described and, kind of explain how we create it. It is very simple. Maybe I'll send you the link and you can post it so that everybody understands in detail what it
Perfect.
means
I'll
to
post it
do.
under in the comments, in the first comments under the video.
Right. But to just briefly answer your question, this is not rocket science. This is grandmother science if you ask. What my parents and grandparents put in their kitchen and ate on a day basis is exactly what is of balanced meal. And in the balanced meal, if you replace everything with whole plant-based foods, you've done it. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Got it. And what about the other thing that people worry about is, am I going to get enough vitamin B12? That's the other question, because plant-based foods don't have B12 in it. Animal sources have. So how do we handle that? Got your way, ma'am.
Yeah, just to answer your question, this is again a very bad myth which is running around that
Mhm.
only animal products have meat fat. Where
Hmm.
do these animal products get this meat right? Because animal products are fermenting or rotting for that matter, if I can use this harsh word. What is fermenting it? All the bacteria, all the microorganisms in the nature are fermenting this animal product once they are dead or milk or whatever.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
these microorganisms create B12, and that is why we find this B12 in animal products.
Okay.
So what do we do when it comes to plant products? Yes, plant products don't come with vitamin B12, but they come with the fiber that is prebiotics. See, all these products which have the live organisms are called probiotics. But the plant has prebiotics. What is that? Fiber. Fiber cannot be digested in human system because we don't have any enzymes to break them down. So the fiber reaches the large intestine, and large intestine is supposed to be having a huge microflora which will digest this fiber because fiber is a food for this microbes.
Okay.
And they produce vitamin B12 inside our guts. So we don't have to worry when we are on whole food plant-based diet because this fiber is going to create B12 inside our system, not necessary consume them from us.
Right. So if you're a vegetarian but you are eating a lot of processed foods and you are killing a lot of your gut bacteria, then of course you'll end up with a B12 deficiency, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. You got the right point, right? So it is very important to eat fiber-rich foods, unprocessed, factory-made food lacks all this fiber, and that is why we get into trouble. So fiber-rich food is the key.
And what's the deal with dairy and ghee? Again, we see two different kind of schools of thought, right? There's one school of thought which says that, dairy, I think everybody agrees that dairy with the existing kind of sources that is there in the market is a bad idea. It's a bad idea for the environment. It's a bad idea from a cruelty perspective. It's a bad idea from a health perspective as well, with all of these antibiotics, etc., hormones that are pumped in. But assume for a moment, if we assume that, okay, somehow we have a good source of dairy, which is being done ethically, where not enough stuff is, there's enough milk left for the cows, the calves, etc. And they're fed proper stuff, right? It's all ethically done, and it's maybe desi cows or whatever. You're getting only 3-4 liters of milk and you're using a little bit of that. Do you think dairy is still a problem even in that situation? Or would you say no, in that situation dairy is fine? What's your take? What's your take on dairy in general and this particular subset?
Right. Whatever you said is all true when it comes to any animal products, and which is true for dairy also. But when you say it is comparatively much better, right? From what the commercially available dairy products, if you say, okay, all these are taken care of, it is probably much better relatively. But
Okay.
where do you make the basic changes? Let's say, let me give you one example. If animal protein itself is a problem, if animal fat itself is a problem for health, where do you remove all of that? Right? It comes. Whether it is a dairy cow or whether you're one at home or you are buying a commercial product, they come intact with the animal protein. Animal protein is the whole. Let me just a couple of ideas. Let me share. See, animal product, including the dairy, was made for its turnover, right? The milk was made for its turnover. All species. And when it comes to animals other than human beings, cognitive development precedes the mind. But for human beings, mental development, nervous system development is more important than the physical body. Because for animals, there are two things. One is it has to fetch its food. Its mother is not going to give it food for next 50 years like my mother would do. Even today, she'll call me and ask, have you had your breakfast? Have you had your lunch? That is not going to be done in the other animal species, right? So it has to fend itself. To find food, it has to start walking around. And also to defend itself from the predators. So these two things, physical development is very important. And its mother's milk, we have huge amount of protein, which will help this growth and development. But for dairy, our growth and development of the body is not that very important. In the sense of, you have to be always comparative. Don't take me, isolate this statement and take wrongly.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
When does a human baby sit or stand or walk? You are ready to wait till 1 year for the human baby to walk. Till that time, it is the brain and the nervous system which is very important, which is developing. So human mother's milk has huge amount of fat and very little protein. Now, if you feed your infant with huge amount of protein, what is going to happen? It is unnecessary, unwanted excess growth and development. That is where we see the risk of cancers and tumors and a lot of things. So it is the animal protein which is the problem. And it is not about all that you spoke matters. But this is also very important. So we can't let go of it.
So I see like a parallel here. For example, when in farming, when we grow grapes, right? A lot of chemical farmers, they use something called gibberellic acid, right? Now, gibberellic acid is a plant growth hormone. So they use that to make the grapes grow faster. Now, when gibberellic acid in a lab, when it was applied to rats, it actually caused tumor in those rats. Now, so again, so it's like this. But at the same time, if you look at things like Panchagavya, Jivamruta, all of these natural concoctions, many of them have very small trace quantities of gibberellic acid. So it is good. It's something which the plant needs. But when it is applied out of context and too much of it, then that same thing which was good is actually bad, right? So I think there's a parallel to that in what you are saying, right? In terms of, hey, all of this protein, etc., is good. It is required, but at the same time, too much of it beyond what that human baby needs is probably not good, right? And it's the good thing in excess quantity can be bad for you, right? So that's also an
Absolutely.
interesting thing.
So, yeah.
Okay.
You
So
said
now
it
that
right.
we are okay.
That
Now,
little proteins you get from the plant products, whatever you need.
There is another question that people have or doubt that people have when they're evaluating whether they want to go plant-based is, skin, hair, etc. We believe that you need collagen to kind of keep everything looking young and stuff like that, right? And a lot of people take collagen supplements and stuff like that. So, what's your take on that? Is that something that people should be worried about if they're on plant-based diets? Should they be taking collagen supplementation or not required?
See, I'm against everything which comes from some extracts, some supplements. Whatever we need should come from food and food alone. So,
Mhm.
our worries or our understanding and our planning should all go towards what kind of food am I eating? Where is my food coming from? What are the sources of my plant food? What is my farmer doing at his end? How is it being transported? How is it being sold? Where am I getting it from? How much am I storing it in my house in the way I store it? And what are the pre-preparations I'm doing with my food? Where am I losing nutrients in this whole chain? That is what should be my worry and buying the right stuff instead of doing this nonsense is what is my true understanding. Second, always, if you look at 2 generations back, we didn't have any of this. Were they not healthy? Were they not beautiful? I have never
Right.
had any of them. Do I look 50 or my skin looks like that? What's wrong with my skin? So people who have problems with the skin come to me. And I have to remove all of this to make the skin better. So there is no need. But underlying thing is you have to eat healthy. That is what is important.
Right. Okay, since we had talked about vitamin B12, the other thing that we see a lot of people kind of have is a vitamin D deficiency, right? Like this is the typical thing. People go ahead and do a blood test. When they do a blood test, first the thing see is that their kidney function is kind of really problematic. The second thing that they see is vitamin D deficiency. Almost everybody gets it. They go to a doctor and then the doctor says, okay, this MUG, have this capsule and things like that. So why is this vitamin D deficiency occurring so much? I mean, I don't think it was so common earlier, right? I mean, what is it and what can people do about it?
Yeah, I think it is more about testing it and getting it to know first. Second, I don't know when they say they put a number there and say this is the norm and it has to be falling into it. I don't know how much that is truly, we should take it with a pinch of salt. But 90 to 95% of human beings can get the requirement of vitamin D by just exposing to the sun. Sunlight
Okay.
falling on our skins, which has good amount of cholesterol under the skin, will convert make vitamin D. Right? Exposure is what is missing. We have to expose ourselves. The skin exposure to the sunlight is what is absolutely essential. So that is where we need corrections, not going
Got
and
it.
testing the popping in pills.
Right. And what time of the day is best for getting this vitamin D creating sunlight? What time of the day should that
Right.
be?
So see, early mornings, sunrise and sun setting would be very pleasant, and that is the time when most of us can afford to get some exposure to the sunlight. But a lot of research also talks about this mid-morning sunlight, which can create a lot of vitamin D. But some of us,
Okay.
especially ladies, would be concerned about their skin getting tanned, and
Hmm.
they won't like that, right? So I would
Right.
recommend an early morning and evening sunrise, sunset time. A good exposure would be ideal. Of course,
Hmm.
if you want to, you can protect your face and head if the sun is harsh. It is just a few minutes of exposure. The skin to the sunlight is what makes the required amount of vitamin D, but it needs to be regular and need to be done consistently. That is what makes the vitamin.
Got it. So now that we are kind of talking about the time of the day, etc., I know that you have a lot of thoughts around, circadian rhythm and things like that. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about that as to how should we think about different times of the day, how should we plan our overall day, when should we doing what? I think that will be very useful.
Right. So there is a rhythm in nature, and based on that, our every organ system has a rhythm. And when we, kind of work together, when this rhythm tunes that rhythm or they become similar, then is when we get the maximum benefit and we don't lose our vitality by setting things which is not in rhythm. That's the first thing we
Mhm.
need to understand. It becomes very
Mm.
easy for our body, kind of synchronize with that rhythm and work beautifully. That is why we save a lot of vitality when we work in natural rhythms. So wake up with the
Mhm.
sunlight and, wind up when the sun sets. Start
Mm.
relaxing, resting, and being with your family and winding up your intense activities and work. And eat with hunger and eat only when there is sunlight, and not just eating, working also, planning your work when there is daylight. All of
Mm.
this is what is going to set the rhythms inside us. For example, as we wake up, we need some amount of stress hormones which should be released inside our body, which will
Mhm.
help us take over all that tasks inside the through the day. And as the sun sets, these hormones will dwindle down and the repair, relaxation, rejuvenation hormones set in. If
Mhm.
we don't relax, or we don't give a pause, or we don't shut off the artificial lights, our body
Mm.
cannot understand. It gets confused and it needs a lot amount of work to be done to set things. We don't allow the natural rhythms to happen inside us. So sleep early, wake up early. It gives you so much time to do all your self-care practices, whatever interests you and whatever gives you joy. And eat while you're hungry. Eat till you're, full but not overeat. And eat
Mm.
healthy. Sleep well. Get some physical activity of your choice. And don't stress yourself too much in the sense of don't chew more than or bite more than what you can chew. All of these makes our life beautiful and healthy.
So, does this mean that if you are going to do physical exercise, whether you are going for a run or a jog, or you're doing some yoga, or you're going to the gym, it's better to do it during the morning hours itself rather than evening? Is that what you would recommend?
See, to start the day with all of this will give us a lot of, peace of mind, calmness of mind to take over our days. But in today's world, if you don't have time in the mornings, of course, protect wherever it is practical, maybe mid morning, evening, somewhere, whatever is practical, but doing becomes very important for me. So do it
Right, right,
wherever you want, but do it. The best would
right,
be
right. Basically, what you don't want people to come back is say, you know what, I know that morning is probably slightly better to do it. I don't have time in the morning, so I'm just not doing it, right? It's
uh,
better to do it in the evening than not do it at all, right? So,
wherever, just do it.
right. Now, for somebody who's transitioning into, let's say, a whole food plant-based diet, would you recommend them do a gradual transition, or should they do like cold turkey? Sorry, from tomorrow, complete change. You are not having animal sources at all, and just go for it. What do you recommend?
See, it all depends individual basis. There would be some people who will say, I have understood it is important. And I am very particular that I want to make changes towards health. That's my
Mm-hmm.
goal. And I'm ready to do. And that willingness, it is not about what you are doing. That willingness in the mind is good enough. to start. So if you're willing, tomorrow morning, all those clients who reach me for the personal consultations, it's tomorrow morning. That's it. There is no slow, gradual process at all. Tomorrow morning, it's done. Right? But I call this Duryodhana types, The guy knows what is right, what is wrong, but he prefers to do wrong. What can you do with those people? You can't do anything with them. So leave them alone. Or give them other schools for that matter, say yoga, pranayama. Patanjali, one of the Patanjali sutras said beautifully that there is a disconnect between the body and the mind. There is a duality between body and the mind. So if you do asana and pranayama, this duality, mind is asking something, body is asking something else, right? Body says, give me fruit, give me vegetables, I want nutrients. But the mind says, give me gulab jamun. So this duality between mind and body will disappear. So that's exactly what I do with some of the clients who are supposed to be disqualified. They don't know how to manage it. I just tell them, do yoga, pranayama, come back after 3 months or 6 months, and they're ready. And there are these in-between people also. I want to do, but I don't know how to do. There, slowly and gradually, probably, there are times when I do that. And it depends on how intense your desires are to walk towards health.
Got it. Now, let's talk about a few more challenges in adopting plant-based diets, right? So you're going out in a social situation. Thankfully, we are in India, so we always have enough vegetarian choices everywhere, right? But let's say you're going to a relative's place, right? And you are from a Bengali family, which means that they have all of this chicken, mutton, sandesh, rasgulla, everything which is there, right? And the only plant-based option you see is, okay, there's a little bit of rice and there's a little bit of dal and probably some cucumbers, right? Everything else is pretty much of there. How do you handle such situations?
Right. This is a kind of, I won't call it tricky at all, because I have decided that I am going to be plant-based. And that day, as you rightly explained, maybe I have white rice, maybe I have cucumbers only as vegetables, and maybe I have dal. What's wrong with that? I will eat only them. But of course, they are not whole food plant-based. But still, I'm okay. They're at least plant-based. So one day, if I go to a wedding, one day I go to a party, one day I am meeting in a relative's house, it's still okay as long as it is plant-based. So those little concessions I make to myself on such occasions, but it has to be plant-based, and I'm very sure.
Okay. Now, the other thing I remember discussing with you at one point of time, where you had mentioned this whole concept of Panchabhuta, right? And how that kind of determines a lot of things in how you think about life in general, wellness in general. I think it will be interesting for our audience to talk a little bit about Panchabhuta and how to think about that.
Right. So when you take this ancient cosmology from Indian philosophies, they talked about everything is made up of 5 natural elements, 5 Panchabhutas. That is which the earth, the water, the air, the fire, and the space. Human body is also made up of these 5 elements. Aithra Upanishad goes on to talk about how it came into being and how from the universal consciousness came the space, and from space came the air, and from there came the fire, and then water, and then the earth, and from earth came the herbs and plants, and from that came the animal kingdom, including the kidney beans. So because our bodies are made up of these 5 natural elements, it becomes extremely important get all those 5 elements to be in health. And when something goes wrong, it becomes even more important to get more of them to heal, to repair, and get practice. So all the elements are very, very important to my daily basis.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, there is one more thing which is bothering me, which is why I kind of want to switch tracks and get back to it, which is about ghee, right? So we were talking about dairy and then we talked about ghee. Now, I see that, I mean, in your consultation and you have used Western philosophies, Eastern philosophies, everything, and if you look at everything, right? So now Ayurveda has a lot of good things to say about ghee, right? It's used as a carrier for various different things. A lot of like things like panchakarma, etc. These sort of treatments that are done in Ayurveda. Like one day they would say, hey, just go ahead and you have to have this much of ghee for a cleansing and things like that. right? So what is your opinion on ghee as such?
Okay, see, I don't know much of Ayurveda, so I might not be the right person to comment on that. But
Mhm.
nutritionally speaking, see, the whole problem for us with animal foods was the protein content which we spoke about. But
Right.
when it comes to ghee, the protein was present there, it was butter. But during the clarification of butter, the process of making butter into ghee, all the
Mhm.
protein is gone. Now, ghee is
Okay.
100% fat. There's nothing else left in the ghee. So, you have nothing
Hmm.
else to bother about except for the fat. Now,
Hmm.
coming to the fat ghee, it is 100% saturated fat. And we know saturated fat is harmful, especially to
Mhm.
the heart cell. But if you look
Mhm.
at the fat present in the ghee, they're all short chain fatty acids.
Okay.
Short chain fatty acids and medium chain fatty acids behave differently inside the ghee. They
Okay.
don't harm the heart because they don't even enter the systemic circulation. They go directly
Okay.
to the liver, the portal vein, the
Hmm.
portal system, and they get burned and used for the physical activity. So, nutritionally speaking, ghee is not harmful or does not create cardiovascular disease. But having said
Hmm.
that, I should also add, if you eat dabbas and dabbas of ghee, thinking nutritionally it is harmless, again,
Hmm.
it is excess fat and it is going to create the same, problems of excess fat, obesity, overweight, and everything related to that. Whether it is,
Right.
insulin resistance, diabetes, everything from that. Cardiovascular
Hmm.
disease, everything. But
Hmm.
nutritionally speaking, ghee is not harmful. Again, ethical issues come
Of
of
course.
do I using ghee for my satisfying my taste buds?
Correct.
No, direct calf of the mother's milk. All these
Absolutely.
ethical
Absolutely.
questions it is for me to answer.
And also the environmental concerns, ethical, environmental, both of those concerns. That's a separate ballgame altogether, right? Which is kind of very
Yeah.
different. Because frankly speaking, there just absolutely isn't enough ghee available which will address those concerns. It's just not there. Right? It doesn't exist.
Yes.
Another product which is honey, right? What is your take on honey? Is that something that is allowed in your the diet that you propose, or is it not allowed? Like
Right.
vegans, people who are vegans, they would not have
Hmm.
honey typically, right? As well.
Correct. Yeah.
Again, there are issues around the ethics, environment, how it's collected, all of that stuff. But what's your take on honey from a nutrition perspective?
Right. So when you're talking about nutrition, it is again sucrose. Right? What is honey? Sucrose, a combination of glucose and fructose.
Oh,
Glucose and fructose coming in the form the plant produced, right? With all other nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, fiber, vitamins, minerals. If it's coming in
hmm.
that package, it's perfectly fine. Like the fruits come, right? This is
Hmm.
exactly what a fruit has. But when it comes to money, it is nothing else but glucose and fructose.
Hmm.
So even if you let go of all those which you spoke about, that it's an animal product, that it is properly dealt with, and all of that. And get this is the whole problem I have is it shouldn't come as an isolated nutrient. When we say nutrition, it has to be complete. All the nutrients should be present. Any plant product will have all the nutrients. It could be
Hmm.
different, but it
Hmm.
will have all of it. If you bake rice, there will be carbohydrate, there will be proteins, there will be a little fat, there will be vitamins, there will be minerals, there will be fiber, there will be water. All the seven nutrients required by the human body will be there. Of course, there will be more carbohydrates. We always call rice carbohydrate, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, if a food has all the nutrients, that is when it gives us. So, if it is in isolation, that is no honey. It has only
Hmm.
glucose proteins. So, it does not have anything else. So, I wouldn't consider it healthy at all. But for that matter, if you ask me the next question as then how do you eat sweets? Fruits themselves are sweet. Right? Fruits themselves are sweet. So you can use all of
Hmm.
them to, satisfy your taste buds. It all again boils down to refinement. Right?
Yeah.
That is what
Right.
I'm getting.
I think that's a good way of thinking about it, that whether that particular nutrient has been isolated, whether by a natural process or by an artificial process, it's probably not as good as having something in the way nature intended it to be. But this brings
Exactly.
me to another question, which is like there is one thing that sometimes people talk about, which is that uh, which parts of the plant does the plant want to be eaten, right? The plant certainly wants the fruit to be eaten because you are going to eat the fruit and that's going to help it in propagating its seed. But some of the parts of the plant may not necessarily want to be eaten, right? So, for example, if there's a palak plant, a spinach which is growing, the spinach probably
Yes,
does not want its leaf to be eaten, right? So, but in that case, wouldn't the plant, see what we learn in farming, for example, at least in organic farming, is we say that, see, there are a few things. First is, get out of this mindset that you are controlling the plant is in control. So that's the first principle we talk about in organic farming, that the plant is in control. It creates chemicals to defend itself, to attract the right microbes, to attract the right fungi, to unlock the sort of nutrients it needs. So the plants are in control. If you just give it the environment, it will figure out, what do I need to, okay, I'm getting this insect attack, this is what I'll do. Plants also create compounds to warn other plants, that, hey, I'm getting eaten, just produce this compound so that you don't get eaten, and so on and so forth, right? So if you keep that in mind, then many plant parts, they probably don't want to be eaten, right? But then we are still eating them. Is that something to think about or be concerned about?
right. See, there are different aspects to it, is the first thing. But we also have to eat something to live, right? So
Mhm.
each species has specific food for that species, and plants happen to be our food. So picking the parts of the plant which is suitable for me is perfectly fine, is what I feel, even though the plant doesn't want me to eat that part of the plant because of
Right.
natural, cycles happening in its own way. So
Hmm.
you can't expect a tiger to eat grass. Tiger has to
Right.
hunt for its food and eat another animal.
Hmm.
Likewise, we have to probably pick different parts of the plant to satisfy our hunger and also continue our species. So that
Hmm.
would probably be an answer to your question, is what I feel. But definitely we have to be sensitized to how much we use. Are we overusing or are we wasting? All of that comes into the picture.
Right.
The
Right.
ethical, the right way of doing and using everything
Right.
has to be based.
Now, another question, which is like raw food versus eating cooked food. I mean, what is your take on that? Is either of those, I mean, is like going on an extreme complete raw food diet, is it a good idea, or no, cooking unlocks certain nutrients, for example, so that therefore you should cook some things? How do you think about that?
See, honestly, if I'm capable of doing it, my body does not need anything other than raw foods, whether it's vegetables,
Okay.
fruits, green leafy vegetables. That's what my body needs to be in health and prevent all kinds of diseases. But my
Hmm.
problem is I didn't grow up like that. For 20,
Hmm.
25 years, by the time I understood everything and I decided to do the way I want to do, I was
Hmm.
already put through different kinds of habits, conditioning. And today, if
Hmm.
you ask me to go raw completely, I might go bonkers. I am not neurotic.
Hmm.
I cannot probably sustain myself. So what I do is I almost go to 70-80% of raw in my daily diet.
Hmm.
And I do eat some amount of cooked food in a healthy way so that my mind also is calm and peaceful. I
Right.
cannot undermine my mind. It is very important that my mind is calm, happy, healthy, so that my body also is ready. So we have to take care of a lot of things. For me, it would be 80%. For somebody else who is
Hmm.
starting, it would be 10%. And slowly gradually comes in. It is all individual based and we have to tailor it.
And the other thing is, like, let's talk a little bit about grocery shopping, right? So So let's say I'm walking into a supermarket and I'm trying to figure out how to eat well. How should we? Obviously, I should avoid all of those aisles which have things in big packets, all the processed foods. That's the first thing that I think goes off, right? I don't think anybody has any school of dieting has a confusion or contradiction
Controversy
or
over
doubt
that.
about
Yeah.
that, right? Yeah. Don't go into all of that stuff. But what else should we be looking at? Should we be focusing on doing a lot of fruits and veggies, or should we be doing things like millets, etc.? How should we look at grocery shopping in general?
Okay. Now you said a supermarket. I would ideally not pick a supermarket because a supermarket today is
Mhm.
still not offering whole plant-based foods, right? There is no
Hmm.
unpolished rice, there is no unpolished millets, there is no whole grain products, there is no dals and grams with the husk on, and there is no
Hmm.
organic fresh produce fruits, vegetables, and green leafy vegetables offered. So I might not even walk into a store. Honestly, if you
Hmm.
ask me, I don't know when, I don't even remember when I walked into a supermarket for the same reason. And also,
Hmm.
I was talking about the mind. If I have to walk through all these aisles and, kind of shut myself off from everything I'm walking through, which is tempting me and bombarding, that's the whole idea of the supermarket. So
Hmm.
I don't want to walk into a supermarket. I would want to
Hmm.
walk into an organic store. At least some of the organic stores are also looking like supermarkets really to me.
Mhm.
But I would ideally walk into an organic store which is offering organically grown or naturally grown fresh produce, like lot of varieties and colors of fruits, vegetables, dairy, whole grain products, and different kinds of dals and brands locally available. All of those unpolished. This is where I will want to go, and I'll be extremely excited to pick up. Almost, I can't stop myself from picking up everything which I can see. And I train
Hmm.
my clients to do that. And this is what we should be demanding so that the market starts providing us.
So you mentioned local. So why should people look at local and seasonal? I mean, what difference does it make?
Right. See, when it is locally grown, it comes to me and my doorstep as quickly as possible. So the nutrient
Mhm.
loss is minimal. And it doesn't go through, there are times where it is harvested months ago, travels to
Mhm.
through the cold chain facilities and stays in cold chain facilities for weeks and months. And later I bring it and I also lock it in my fridge. Doesn't make any
Hmm.
sense to me. Lost almost all
Hmm.
the nutrients. How does
Hmm.
it, I mean, how does it take care of my health? No, that's why it is very important to get everything, whatever is grown locally.
Mhm.
And when it comes to seasonal, nature has a lot of intelligence. It produces certain things in certain season because that's what is important in that particular season. And of course, we see that is disappearing, and probably that's your area of work where you should bring in that. What is available in
Right.
the season only should be available during that time so that we don't go in search of that. It is very important to follow the nature's wisdom so that I know. Yeah, I don't have to know where to look for because nature has already
Hmm.
created it. Today I get mangoes of different colors, different varieties, different flavors. Why not eat
Hmm.
mangoes and enjoy? And why look for apples? That should be our
Right.
wisdom of following the nature.
Right. And if you're eating apples, eat your Himachal and Kashmir apples. Why wait for the New Zealand ones, right? Because they are traveling
Yeah,
a long time. And if they're coming from New Zealand, surely they have a wax coating as well. Because the guy who's shipping it needs to make sure it doesn't shrink during the whole transport process and so on and so forth, right? So that's there.
absolutely.
And actually, this whole seasonal thing is very interesting because what I've realized is everybody has forgotten about seasons because we are just used to everything being available all throughout, right? Carrots all throughout, cauliflowers all throughout, right? These were all completely seasonal things. Even when I was a child, there were many of these
Yeah,
things would not be available in the local market. Forget organic and all of this stuff. Your local vegetable wala will not have that. They'll say, oh, why cauliflower? Abhi to summer hai. No cauliflower. Wait for 3 more months. After that, cauliflower will come, right? Nowadays, that's not expected. You have to have
absolutely.
cauliflower all throughout the year and things like that. So that's interesting. Now, in terms of oils, should people not use oils at all in their cooking? I mean, a lot of people talk about doing oil free tadka and things like that. What's your take on oils? Is it like Yeah, oils are okay, small amounts, cold pressed. How do you think about oil? Or should it be no? You should not have any oil at all.
Right. So fats are absolutely essential for human body to be in health and even to exist. As I was talking about our brain health, our nervous system. Particularly for a lot of functions inside our body, we need fats, but it's
Right.
required in their natural form. It doesn't need extraction. Like just now, as I explained, no, what is oil? It's an extract that came from some other plant product. Now it has completely fat. It has lost all other nutrients which it came with. I think you took an example. What was oil which you said doesn't?
I just
Let's
said
say,
cold pressed. I said cold
yeah,
pressed oil.
correct. Groundnut oil, right? In the groundnut, all the nutrients were present. I've extracted only the fat now. That is my problem. So eat everything. Think that would be my first advice. Second thing, if at all you don't know or you don't want to get rid of all the oil, keep it as minimum as possible. And of course, as you
Like
said,
if I'm going to make a nice crispy dosa, I feel like having a nice crispy dosa. How do I make it
okay,
without oil? Is it possible?
is possible if you bring in your grandmother's iron tawa, which is
That iron.
absolutely simple. You can always make a crispy dosas, and even if you think you want to, use a couple of drops of cold pressed oil. But it all depends on who is using, why you're using, what are your end goals. Are you suffering with different kinds of diseases? It all depends on what your goals are. I would simply say it has to be as full as possible, as much as.
Right. I think the only thing that I see is, so I think I understand your philosophy now, which is that have it in its original form, not in the extracted form. Are there exceptions to this, especially for people who are, who are recovering from some particular sickness, where they might need a little bit more of one particular nutrient, which might not be available in that much proportion in their natural form, right? Example is probably again this honey and things like that, right? Like, are there situations where because the person who's eating it is not completely in a normal stage, they need some additional help? That's why you use some of this extracted stuff instead of their regular natural form. Is that something which is there?
Okay. I mean, to answer your question, I would say the secret is because even more important for them to follow everything right. If they're not sick, at least, one day I missed or I did something else and I'm coming back, it's perfectly fine. But if I am sick, it is even more important to make more drastic and quick changes. I wouldn't allow any such things. That's like we're talking about honey, but maybe, like I would say, for example, somebody needs, like say, I have a client who is a tennis player. I'm working with a tennis player, so he needs more protein. So I will ensure that he gets more quantity of that because that is the need for his work. So I would work on the foods which are richer in a particular nutrient for which my nutrition knowledge comes to help. That's fundamentals of modern medical nutrition which I have gone through. That formal education of 3 years of degree, 2 years of master's, 8 years of research work is what comes into a picture, sir, where I can make my decisions right in spite of keeping everything balanced.
Got it. Cool. Awesome. So I have a few other questions left.
Yeah.
So one question is around a lot of people talk about, starting off the day with a green juice or something like that, right? Or with a vegetable juice and juicing. So now juicing is a slightly tricky situation, right? I mean, on the one hand, you are getting all of the nutrients from that vegetable, right? At the same time, depending on how you prepare it, you might lose some of the fiber. In some cases, depending on how you actually do the juicing, you could retain the fiber. But so what's your take on juicing in general as a way to consume stuff?
Right. So while juicing, whatever process you use, you are destroying the structural fine. It is not the way it works in a fruit. As long as you have
Interesting.
30 pills in your mouth, you have to chew them and eat, not just then and accept that out. Absolutely not. But when you lose your teeth, you're sick. You run a marathon. Do what you want. But no power.
Got it. Okay. I think that's a very clear answer. Okay. So that's about juicing. And then, yeah, I think I I have a lot of information to process. I am pretty much done. So thank you so much, Gauri ma'am, for coming down for this show. Now, can you tell us your website address as well, so that people who want to reach out to you, they could kind of do that?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me on your show, Shamik. I really appreciate all the work you do and your teamwork, bringing in that awareness in people and making it available to a common man was very important. I remember even 15, 17 years ago, I would go every week to myself to pick up stuff and people would think I was crazy. But today
Wow.
it is available through Farmizen at our doorsteps. So I think you've brought in a revolution at both ends, from the person who is growing it to the consumer. So I really appreciate your work. Thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. And yeah, I will share my website link and the work I do. And so you can share those links probably. So it is just simply
Sounds
called as the GauriRokkam.com.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the Farmizen Show, where we uncovered the delicious interplay between food, farming, and wellness, shaping a brighter, healthier tomorrow. Better for farmers, better for the planet, better for you.